Pakistan cricket at its best. 1 minute down, next minute up.
Thanks very much, everybody, for joining me once again. Delighted to be joined by a regular guest of PakPassion's, a dear friend of PakPassion who we've known for many years. Always very popular on the forums and on social media when we post any of his videos. Journalist, commentator, commentates on Caribbean cricket. I call him the fountain of knowledge when it comes to Caribbean cricket because there's not many out there who know as much as he does about West Indies, past, present, and future. And as I say, he's the voice of Caribbean cricket, and many people will be familiar with him all around the world. Great to be joined once again by Fazeer Mohammed. Fazeer, hope you're well.
I'm well, and hope you are well, and your audience also. Probably looking forward to the cricket that is to come, given all the preoccupation with the Football World Cup.
Absolutely, Fazeer. I mean, we'll come on to the West Indies-Pakistan series, which is going to be the main talking point today. But the very sad news about Sir Garfield Sobers, I remember my dad telling me that he was one of the greatest cricketers he ever saw. And it's terrible news, isn't it? Just tell us your thoughts about Sir Garfield Sobers.
Terrible news, yes, in the sense of someone who's such an icon of the game passing away. But we knew that the end was nigh when you'd have seen him looking increasingly frail, getting towards his 90th birthday. And he never really did the nervous 90s, so maybe it's just as well that he's chosen, or it's been chosen for him to leave so close to his 90th birthday. But yes, even for someone like me, who never saw him in his prime, because his test career, his international career, came to an end in 1974, and I was just 9 years of age and didn't really have a proper appreciation of his greatness. But it was inevitable. Even growing up, you read about him, you learned so much about him, you heard so much about him. You couldn't visit any cricket ground in any part of Trinidad and Tobago, my home nation, and indeed the name Gary Sobers would come up in some way, in some form or fashion. And indeed, of course, as trying to become a student of the game, growing up to love the game and reading so much about the game, you more or less appreciated the immense impact that he would have had on the game, and also the tremendous skill. I mean, just with his passing, you would have heard someone like an Ian Chappell from Australia, a country that produces the great Sir Donald Bradman, saying that Garfield Sobers, not just the greatest all-rounder, but was the greatest batsman that he ever saw. And that tells you a lot, that you have someone averaging almost 58 in 93 test matches, taking 235 wickets, 109 catches, was captain of a West Indies team in the 1960s when they were the most dominant force in the game at the time, which is something worth repeating because people often talk about the 70s and the 80s and the quartets of fast bowlers and so on. In the 60s, the West Indies were kings of the game as well, and Sobers was at the very top of that. But more than anything else, Saj, as we look back on it, and it wasn't just the numbers and the world records, the 365 not out against Pakistan in 1958 and so on, the 6 sixes and the 1 over and all of that, but was the way he played the game. And I think, Saj, West Indies cricketers, and certainly West Indies fans, looked at that description of Calypso cricketers with a jaundiced eye, because it had a double intonation to it. Yes, enjoying the game, but also a tenor of happy-go-lucky, win someday, lose the other day, that sort of thing. And I think West Indians didn't like that reference at all. And certainly the likes of Garfield Sobers, Conrad Hunt, Rohan Kanhai, Wes Hall, Charlie Griffith, Lance Gibbs, they bristled at the idea of them being described as Calypso cricketers because they saw themselves as hard-nosed professionals. So yes, there was the obvious flair and the style and the panache that cannot be repeated anywhere else in the world. But there was also a steely determination, and we saw that so often in so many of the great performances of Sir Garfield Sobers. So yes, just to conclude my own summation, which will never match those who would have seen him in his prime, when people say one of the greatest or arguably the greatest, my point is that I leave out all the prefixes. He was the greatest all-round cricketer who ever lived.
Wonderful words there, Fazeer, and our sincere condolences to his family and friends. Fazeer, moving on to West Indies versus Pakistan, it seems almost like an impossible series to predict because you don't know which side of the bed these teams are going to get out of. But casting your very professional eye over the two teams, how do you see the series going?
I suppose at this point, we could say the West Indies are favourites going into the series because they've just won a series against Sri Lanka, just 2 matches. I mean, the days of these two teams playing 5 test series or 4 test series seem to be long gone. Even 3 test series, we don't get those anymore. And because, again, the West Indies demolished Sri Lanka in that first test match, even though, again, the surface suggested that there were runs to be had. The second test match ended in a high-scoring draw, but the quality of the West Indies fast bowling seems to be a telling factor, apart from the runs, of course, from Amir Jangu with that double 100, the captain Roston Chase getting a big 100 as well. But I think what's going to be one of the key factors is that the 2 test matches are being played in my home country, Trinidad and Tobago. The first test starts July 25th. Is going to be at the Brian Lara Stadium, the first time ever that ground will host a test match, followed by a second test a few days later at the traditional venue of the Queen's Park Oval. And this is the month of July, end of July, going into August, which is generally a very rainy period in this part of the Southern Caribbean. We're just a few miles away from South America and the nation of Venezuela. And it's usually very unpredictable with the weather. So the weather could play a significant factor in both these test matches. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But in specific reference to both teams, I think the West Indies will definitely fancy themselves because it just seems that Pakistan just losing a test series 2-0 in Bangladesh. They were beaten by Bangladesh in Pakistan for a few months earlier. And there just seems to be a feeling of an unsettled nature in Pakistan cricket. Babar Azam is back. People have so much to say about him. Plus or minus. The fast bowling lineup has been completely revamped from what we are seeing. The batting hasn't been consistent at all for a long time. So I think the West Indies will feel, while they certainly can't take anybody for granted, that they've got a very good chance here against Pakistan.
You touched upon the West Indies pace attack, Fazeer, and Pakistan's almost weakness at the moment seems to be facing pace. And Naheed Rana caused Pakistan a lot of problems. And I'm looking at that West Indies pace bowling lineup. It's not quite the levels of yesteryear when West Indies had 4 fantastic world-class world beaters, pace bowlers. But there seems to be quite a lot of progress in that area for West Indies, and they've got like a quartet of very good fast bowlers now.
Indeed, and of course the senior man, Kimar Roach, having gotten 300 test wickets, he didn't play in the second test match because of what was described as some sort of niggling injury, and I suspect really because having reached the plateau of 300 test wickets, knowing that he's virtually at the end of his career, he probably wanted to give some of the other younger players like Anderson Phillip an opportunity. But yeah, coming into this first test match, you've got Jaden Seals in his home country, who fans would have seen in Pakistan, and even on the Dust Bowl in Multan for those back-to-back test matches, the impact he had on the first morning in that series in January of last year. So you've got Jaden Seals, you've got Alzari Joseph, you've got Shamar Joseph, you've got Anderson Phillip. So yes, there seems to be a quartet nowhere near, of course, as you correctly said, to the great quartets of the past, the Holding Roberts, Croft Garner, your Malcolm Marshall, Curtly Ambrose, Courtney Walsh, Ian Bishop. But there seems to be the potential, if they really click, if they really get it together and maybe get a surface that is helpful to them, they could have Pakistan's batting under a lot of pressure in both the test matches to come. So yes, there's immense potential, but there also has to be consistency, because remember, they conceded almost 550 runs against Sri Lanka in the first innings of that second test match. So if they're not consistent, if they don't get it right, they could go for a lot of runs. And so it's really up to the bowlers to get it right from a West Indies point of view, but from the Pakistan batting point of view, they've got to raise their game significantly.
Pakistan's bowling lineup, Fazeer, again, you've touched upon it. There's no Shaheen Shah Afridi, there's no Naseem Shah, there's no Hassan Ali. Looks quite raw, looks quite inexperienced at the highest level, most of the bowling lineup. Yet West Indies batting lineup, it showed some consistency and good form in Sri Lanka. Sorry, against Sri Lanka, my apologies.
Yeah, and indeed it did. But again, it's the West Indies. You never know what could happen at any given time, especially if they are caught on a green top or a seaming track, and the Pakistan young fast bowlers get it right. No, I have to say, Saj, that I am almost at a loss that a nation of almost 250 million people, and the vast majority of whom are absolutely fanatical about the game of cricket, are struggling to find quality fast bowlers, because I accept that you're not going to have your Imran Khan, your Wasim Akram, your Waqar Yunis every other day. But it just seems to me that there's something wrong with the system in Pakistan, whether it's talent identification, whether it's the system itself. Is it bringing forward the talent? Are they being lost to domestic T20 cricket? But yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for these younger fast bowlers, these raw fast bowlers, to make their names. And really it's up to them to rise to the challenge, whether it turns out to be a healthful track or flat tracks for both these test matches. They've got the opportunity. And from a cricketing point of view, you want them to take it with both hands.
Pakistan visiting the Caribbean, Fazeer, back in the days, packed stadiums. Pakistan were hugely popular in the Caribbean. The fans used to, the Caribbean fans would love seeing the likes of Wasim Akram, Waqar Yunis, Shoaib Akhtar, Imran Khan, these guys. Are Pakistan still as popular in the Caribbean?
I think there's a lot of lingering sentiment for people with gray hair like mine, or maybe with no hair at all. But the environment has changed. The environment has changed so much that, and because these teams either play so infrequently, and even when they are playing, it almost goes below the radar, because and I'm sure the fans will see when they see the television images, the stands are almost empty. There's hardly anyone around. We've had a series going on of one-day internationals that has now moved on to Barbados, and I'm sure there's going to be a tribute to the late great Sir Garfield Sobers in his home island when that series resumes against New Zealand. But 3 matches were played in Guyana, and Guyana, a nation that we know to still be the most passionate about the game in the Caribbean, and the stadium were almost empty. They actually closed off much of the stadium and used only one major stand to accommodate the fans. And I think that speaks to a level of disillusionment with how things have gone in West Indies cricket for such a long period of time. So yes, those days are long gone when there's that intensity and that passion from the fans. But yes, there'll be a few who will still remember the great duels, the great moments, Viv Richards against Imran Khan, and so on and so forth. Javed Miandad getting hundreds in the Caribbean, Wasim Akram, Waqar Yunis, all those great names. Wasim Raja, who, for people of my era, excuse me, remains a huge favorite, because that 1977 series, we saw the best of Wasim Raja, that left-handed attacking batsman. But yeah, times have changed, Saj, and while it might be difficult for dinosaurs like myself to accept it, it's one of the realities.
It's almost sad, though, Fazeer, to see, as you mentioned there, West Indies and Pakistan. It was almost like an unofficial World Test Championship, some of the series of yesteryear. And here they are now, sort of lingering towards the bottom of the World Test Championship table, the ICC rankings. I guess it just reflects how the power base in international cricket has moved, and how cricket in the Caribbean and in Pakistan has been left behind.
Indeed. And in many ways, yes, left behind. But I think also there has to be a level of taking responsibility for your own situation. And yes, we know about the big three. We know about how things are working in the ICC, which I often describe as really not a governing body per se, but really an events management company. They are really a glorified umbrella where people come in under the tent to beg for favors from the big three. But having said that, I'm talking about the West Indies here, that the West Indies would have declined to the level that we have that from since 1995, we're talking about 31 years, to be to a level of mediocrity, to almost laughable mediocrity. We can't just simply say that this was the powerful nations conspiring against us. There's a lot more to it. There's about the infrastructure. There's about having a vision and thinking in terms of really planning ahead and looking for the way forward in West Indies cricket. So we are in many ways the architects of our own demise. And for Pakistan, looking on from a distance, you'll have to say, again, for a nation that is really the second most populous cricket nation in the world, to be in the situation that they are, speaks to something more than just being set up by some other nation or being prejudiced by somebody else. It speaks to something that is fundamentally wrong at the very root of the game. So yes, being left behind, but also contributing to that situation. There's maybe a denial of accepting that sort of reality, but I don't think you could avoid it.
And for our viewers, they'll be wanting to know who are the Caribbean, the West Indies players to look out for in this upcoming Test series against Pakistan. Who do you think will be the standout performers?
Well, I think the fast bowlers will be the ones to make the difference for the West Indies. As I said, I think Kemar Roach is recognizing that his end is nigh, and I don't expect him to feature significantly. Although, again, if there's an injury concern, he could slot in because he's so very effective. But I think that quartet that I mentioned, Jaden Seals, the two Josephs, Alzari and Shamar, Anderson Phillip to a lesser extent, they're going to play key roles. The batting lineup, yes, they got big runs, but I think there's a concern as to whether or not they can reproduce it consistently. You've got in Shea Hope, I think, someone who at last we are seeing a level of consistency because he scored 3 Test centuries in the last 12 months. He's a fixture, of course, in the shorter format of the game. He's only come back to Test cricket last year. I think his role at number 3 or number 4 is going to be vital. Yes, Amir Django is there, and he could probably do like a Jimmy Adams, a Larry Gomes sort of role as a left-hander. But when you talk about someone who can produce runs consistently for you, I think Shea Hope is the one to make that difference, because the batting could build around him, and if he really puts it together, then the other players, your Brandon Kings, your John Campbell, your Amir Django, Kavem Hodge, who usually comes in at 3 as well, they are the ones who are going to make the difference for the West Indies.
And finally, Fazeer, chaos, unpredictability, and surprises. I think those are 3 words, that are always relevant in Pakistan cricket. In recent times, definitely, and some would say probably even longer than recent times. But Babar Azam back as Test captain, are you surprised that he's taken on that mantle once again? I remember the days when we basically had 10 or 11 candidates to be Pakistan Test captain. These days, it seems like nobody wants the job.
Yeah, it seems to be sort of like what we have in the Caribbean. We often refer to it as a poison chalice to be the captain of the West Indies, because you've got individual territories. And I remember a famous occasion, I think it was in 1993, where you had Javed Miandad and Wasim Akram. They were almost trying their best to stay miles apart on the field because of some issue there. And we all know about the Lahore faction going for Imran Khan, the Karachi faction going for Javed Miandad. And it just seems to be a never-ending situation. And I think it's really up to Babar Azam to step up. Yes, commendation to him for taking on that challenge, and put aside all of the internal politics. It might be easy for me to say because I'll be clueless as to what goes on in the dressing room and the infighting and whatever else. But I think it's really vital that someone like Babar Azam not just produces the runs, but the leadership, the strong leadership that Pakistan needs, the Imran Khan type of leadership, to basically read the riot act to some of his own players to get them to step up to the challenge.
Well, Fazeer, whichever way it goes, it promises to be a fascinating and unpredictable series where anything is possible. So let's wait and see. Hopefully it's an enjoyable series and one where there's a lot of good cricket played.
Let's hope so. Let's hope that there's not a lot of rain, which we're always fearful of at this time of the year.